I am Neil.
I'm Veronica. We fell in love when we were 16, and here we are talking about what life is all about for us. Thank you for joining us.
This is a Life Is podcast with Neil and Veronica.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Life Is with Neil and Veronica, where today I was inspired earlier in the week by an email that I received from our children's school. And it really got me thinking about this great analogy and picture that some of you may or may not seen. So what I'd like to talk to Veronica about today and to all of you is life is an iceberg. So for those of you who may not have seen this before, there's pictures out there of icebergs, and for those of you who are seeing on the video, you have obviously the top half and a large bottom half. So is there anything that comes to your mind when I talk about life as an iceberg, Veronica?
Number one, I was going to ask you if you were traveling to Alaska or maybe to Iceland. Are there icebergs in Iceland? I'm terrible at geography. Anyways, Neil and I love traveling. So I was like, ooh. But in terms of the analogy, absolutely. I mean, we've spoken a lot about the anger iceberg. And in general, that there is so much more to everyone's story, to different situations than what you can see on the surface. So that's what comes to mind immediately.
Exactly. And on the flip side of, the anger iceberg or a trauma iceberg or, whatever people's stories are, the school sent out the picture of what they like to call a success iceberg, and trying to instill in the kids at the school that what surface level success they see, they should really start to appreciate all the hard work that goes into that, at the bottom of the iceberg. So you can even begin to use that in a positive sense of, there's a lot of success. And for those of you who know Veronica personally, she has had a lot of success in her endeavors outside of her day job, where maybe some people that just see her on a surface level in her community, let's say, don't actually get to see the hard work and commitment and day-to-day consistency that she does in that to be able to be successful. And that's what I thought of first when I saw the iceberg and success. I thought of you because of all your hard work that you do each and every day, both as a mom, in your day job, in your community. So it's really a great perspective, both to reflect on yourself, but to look at others, like you were saying, that there's a lot more to everyone that we don't know they've gone through or are currently going through that could cause them to react, to maybe make a decision in the moment that we have to learn and understand about. When I was in my career and I was in customer service and I was in the food industry, there was a story that was shared with me about a customer that would come in and order their food, and they would always seem a little bit crusty, a little bit short, and not very personable, let's say. So the workers and the managers would talk about how, this person who regularly came in was not the best person to deal with. They just didn't understand what was going on. And later on, after some time, this customer came back and she brought the entire store a gift basket full of items just to say thank you. And what she told them was that every day on the way to the hospital to see her sick child, she would stop into this place, grab her items, and that was the one moment that she had to sort of just release what was going on in her day-to-day life. And she said, thank you, because this short moment in time before I went to go see my children, our child, was the one thing that kept me going each and every day. And it was a key moment, and I didn't really know about the iceberg analogy at the time, but it was a key moment for me to realize you don't know what happened for somebody who walked through that door. You don't know what happened to them years ago. And just to really, again, in those moments, be kind to other people.
Yeah, because it doesn't cost anything to be kind. And that is it's such a good story to share too, because it's so easy. I think, again, like, Neil and I are not scientific by any means. Like, we're sharing our own perspective. That is what this podcast is all about. I mean, have I mentioned that I can go down the rabbit hole of like looking things up and, being evidence informed? Yeah, absolutely. But, we're always sharing from our own perspective. And there's like, as human beings, it's just so easy to judge people, right? Like that is often reflex, is that it's easy to judge and it's easy to assume. And in any of those given situations, right? Like, even if someone's being unkind or what you can perceive to be as unkind on the other end of things, doesn't mean that you can't be kind to them in a sense, right? Like, there is that saying that is passed around often, is that you don't know somebody's story, and that it doesn't cost anything to be kind. And I think those are some really good principles to go off of. And I remember you actually told me that story. You came home one day and we were even talking about, setting events and things like that. Like, we all have bad days. We all have bad moments. And, at one point in my career, I was working with children directly, and you don't know what's happening, right? And, actually, even now, we're really mindful when, the kids might have a bad morning. And you had mentioned this specifically in a podcast, which I really love too, is that doesn't mean that you're going to have a bad day or an entire bad day, but that, you're very mindful to let the teachers know, like, this is what happened this morning, just so you are aware. And, if they seem off or what that is. So there's lots of different variables, I guess, that go into that. And it was so sweet of you when you just mentioned, actually, that when you thought of the success iceberg. So first of all, I love that there was a positive aspect to that. And I love that they shared that, because usually when you do think of like any analogy of an iceberg, it's like, ooh, like what's underlying, right? But that is more of like a visual almost of like that foundation, and that there is a lot of hard work that goes into that can't be seen. Whereas like, what is visual is often the results. But we all know that like results don't take 10 minutes or 1 hour or 1 day. Like, often you have to string together a lot of consistency for something visible to be shown as like a result almost. I mean, maybe that's a very general statement. But for those of you that know us, I mean, it's probably no surprise that Neil said that he thought of me, which is so sweet. You're always thinking of me, which is very kind of you to say. But that, is all made possible because you are like our rock. You are my number one support. You are my number one cheerleader. And there was that quote that I thought of again, me and my quotes, but I think it went something like, when you feel like giving up, like hope whispers one more time kind of thing. And you are like that voice of like hope for me often. So it's, I think it's so important also to always be like hanging on to hope, because sometimes that's what keeps us going too. But yeah, there's a lot underneath the surface. And, sometimes it is that more negative sense. Sometimes it is that positive sense, which I love. I never thought of that. I feel like I need to go look that up now again and print that off.
Absolutely, because it can be both sides of the coin, right? And you first brought this analogy up to me, like you said, about an anger iceberg, when people's emotions that they outwardly emit to other people aren't exactly what the issue is. So, if somebody is angry or upset, there's obviously a reason that they're reacting that way. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not always necessarily because of you and what you maybe directly said or your actions. And I read a book over the last year, I think it was the beginning of last year, called What Happened to You, which ties really well into this analogy, because instead of asking about the question when somebody does something, or you see an action that maybe you don't align with or agree with, instead of saying what's wrong with you, the book really went into in depth about having the mindset of what happened to you, because there's a lot that goes into everybody, again, into the iceberg of each individual person, that builds from the bottom and layers beneath the surface, but then only shows outwardly above the surface. So it's a great book that really opened my mind again to building on this analogy that, it's not necessarily what's wrong with somebody. It's, again, what happened to them. And just having that open mindset to be willing to think about that in individual situations.
Yeah, when you read that book, so I am not a reader. I try really hard, but I'm more of a like, I'll read a 1 minute article that summarizes something. Or, I really love now that you're able to share your wisdom with me. And so when you shared that with me, it was like an aha moment for sure, because I feel like we've always kind of come from that mindset almost of like, what is your story? What is our story? What's my story? What is everybody's story? And really, like, what have they gone through? And I think a lot of that also stems from like my parents' journey and my parents' story. And like there's so much underneath that surface for sure. And we keep finding out like more and more all the time. And I think, everyone can probably relate to that in some shape or form. There's a lot it's history. So there's a lot that's there. And that was a really eye-opening moment for sure. It's a different perspective, right? It's so easy to react and be like, what's wrong with you? Or to think like, what's wrong with that person? And, it makes me think of that time where, we found out that your nan was really sick and we had to travel, and we literally had to get the kids in the car like super fast, and we had to stop and we had to feed them. Right. But like they couldn't get dressed after daycare. And anyone that has kids that come home after daycare, like it looks like sometimes they've rolled through like a hill of mud, and they've gone through like 3 pairs of clothing. And I remember, like so vividly too, that we had stopped and we got food and our kids looked like a disaster, and it was late. Right. And so how many times, have you seen a family where like kids are crying, it's late, and you're like, what are you doing out? Like, why are the kids there? Like, what are you doing? And I remember, because at that time, that was where I still had the perspective of like, what's everyone thinking of me? What is everybody thinking of us? What are their thoughts? Where now I'm like, I don't really care. I mean, I do care to a certain extent, but like, it's not, it doesn't go into shaping my decisions or anything like that. Like I appreciate perspective, but I'm not consumed by thinking about what other people are thinking of us. So I remember in that moment though, thinking like, whoa, we look like a hot mess right now. And it just, part of me was like, but no one has any idea of like what we're going through at this moment.
Yeah. I mean, I was a hot mess too. And I think it just added to the whole moment that if anybody was to look at us from the outside, if depending on their perspective, they would think that there was, a lot wrong going on, that we were, whatever judgment they came to. But again, it was for a very significant reason that we were in that situation, a life-setting event of somebody close to me and you passing away. That was 5 hours that we were trying to get to. So yeah, I remember us talking about that and reflecting, maybe days after we had gone through her passing, and really was I think a changing of our mindset, maybe even more for you than me, about just realizing that nobody knows what we're going through, and we clearly don't realize what you're going through about other people. We should just really focus on ourselves.
I think we can also really underestimate the impact that you could have at any given time to anyone's situation, in a sense. It's been really neat when you talk about being part of the community that I'm in on the side, when I hear these stories sometimes, and equally so, right? So, it's so important to continue to fill up your cup and find those things that bring you purpose and meaning and belonging and a sense of community. And I think Neil's going to go into that, because you were talking about that one day about how, community can bring so much positivity, in a sense, or that happiness, I guess, that, can be part of your life. But often, I'm just interacting with people and I'm like, I don't know. I'm my authentic self. I can be really squirrely. It's something I say very often. I own it. Friends of mine are kind of like, maybe you should get that looked into, but I am who I am. It is what it is. And, sometimes I've received messages that are so kind and I had no idea, right? I'm just talking to you, or I'm just, we're just kind of hanging out or whatever that is. And, I've had some messages where people are like, it was so nice to see you because of this or that. And, just really neat to be like, wow, I really underestimated that moment. Did I enjoy that conversation 1,000%? And, did I really value it? Of course. But to hear what it's like on the other side, and similarly with me, right? There are so many people that have come into our life that sometimes I feel like they have no idea, the impact that they have on me. But I know the days where I do interact with them, my day is so lovely. And, those are the life-changing kind of souls that you need in your life, I feel sometimes, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, maybe we can just touch on a sense of community, because I did come across some information that it does say that, having a community, whatever you deem to be your community, is the number one factor in happiness. And I know that this community, for me and you, that we have here on this podcast, really exponentially makes this conversation that we get to have, every half an hour, twice a week, even much more fulfilling and great. And we have many other communities that we're a part of, whether it's athletic communities, school communities, neighborhood communities, and your outside community that you're in. It's just one kind word, one kind gesture, one thoughtful surprise gift. Something so small can change somebody's day, week, month, season. And again, I know you just touched on it, you've seen that firsthand, and I hope that others have felt that from people in their community, that no matter what you're going through, if you're having a bad moment day, one kind word from another person or somebody in your community can really impact and change your whole day or your whole week based off of that.
Mm-hmm. You know what I've been trying to do is like let people know you're thinking of them. I feel like sometimes it's as simple as that. Because for someone like me that has lots of thoughts that pop into my mind at any given point, sometimes like a funny story pops into my mind, or just just somebody. And often then I like to message them. I try to message them like as quickly as I can when I'm thinking of them, and just saying something like, I thought of you today and XYZ or whatever it is. And it's something that's so simple. And like, we're so quick to like move on to the next thing, or even like not be dismissive on purpose. But, as we talked about, life is better slowed down. So for me, sometimes it's like harnessing in those thoughts. And it's also like, who doesn't want to be thought of in a sense, right? So like if I get a message and someone's like, oh, I was thinking of you today. And it's like, that is so kind. Like that is so nice. So I feel like that's one simple thing that I've been trying to do, is to be more mindful of that. And sometimes I'm like, okay, today I really want to reach out to like 3 people. Here's the 3 again, right? So sometimes we start our day and it's like the 3 things to do. Maybe we would challenge that to being like, reach out to 3 people today. Because why not? Sometimes we have like, those small conversations or those bigger conversations, but it just feels so nice. It's almost like a little, not really pay it forward, but even pick up the phone and give them a call and maybe weird them out a bit. You know what? To be honest, this happened one time and I had called somebody and they texted this. They didn't pick up the phone, and I did leave a voicemail. They didn't check the voicemail. They sent me a text back and they were like, did you just pocket dial me? And I was like, no, I wanted to talk to you. But we're so not used to that, and I'm getting, this is where I say like, I feel like very well known for 1+ minute voice messages. There was a time where you weren't able to send anything longer than a minute. You get like cut off. And me with all of my thoughts, I would be sending a voice message and I'd be like looking off to the side, sometimes like I do here for those of you that are watching. And I'm like blabbering on and I look down and I'm like, oh, where did it cut me off? Because I just kept talking. So, try to make it a little bit more personal, and just, it doesn't take very long. And I find it's like getting that like happy mail, right? Instead of getting like the bills that aren't so fun in the mail, it's like sometimes there's like those bills in people's inboxes in a sense where, it's not so fun. It's not so great. It's like,
nobody gets good mail anymore.
And sometimes
right?
it's like bad news that like, yeah. I mean, legit send some happy mail for sure, because that's fun. But like, you could be the happy mail in someone's like message inbox too.
And I know that
has nothing to do with icebergs.
Yeah. No, but it does, and this is how our conversations literally go sometimes. We start with one thing and we gradually work our way to one thing. But I do feel that, circling back to what you were talking about in sending those messages, I know that when you send those messages to people, you're just sending them to tell them with no expectation of a reply. You literally just want to say to them, I thought of you, and the underlying message is, I hope you're keeping well, and I can't wait to talk to you another time. And it goes a long way to, again, maybe changing their situation, that now that we're in a world where we can interact with our community or friends from a distance, we may not have any idea what's going on in their lives day to day until they tell us. But that one message that they get up in the morning or late in the evening and they see from anybody, or they seeing it from you, can change whatever is going on. Circling back to the story that I was told so early on in my customer service career, right? We don't know what's going on in somebody else's life. So really, be kind. Just be kind to yourself, to others. It's just, kindness really is just a really great way to just make somebody else happy, and then in turn yourself. So I love when you get those messages from other people saying like, thank you so much for thinking of me, or thank you so much for sending me that, or, I know firsthand how thoughtful you are, even in a message or happy mail that you like to send people. So I get to see it firsthand, the thought process that goes into it.
Well, you send me messages too, which is super sweet. And
I mean, I do.
I don't know why it reminded me of this, but like for my birthday, our oldest daughter, so we're all about more like the gestures and stuff, right? So, if we rewind, there was a time where Neil and I, we didn't really celebrate our birthday. We were like, hey, it's like another day. But I think you should always celebrate your birthday. It doesn't have to be big and dramatic, but like you should celebrate. So on my birthday leading up to it, our oldest daughter decided to she called it like an advent calendar almost. And she wrote a Post-it note. I can't remember how many days in total she did it for, but it was like a countdown. And it was like, I love you so much, mommy. And then it was like, I love you so much, mommy. And then there was like a countdown with days and numbers and stuff, which was like the sweetest thing. And the fact that she took that time to just like think of me and think of my birthday, I feel like that was like her version of like happy mail for me in a sense. And she does that a lot now. Like sometimes, she's thinking of her friend. She wants to like print off a photo or color a picture or write them a note. And even, our son is having, his birthday soon. And today at the store, she wanted to pick something up and like color it for him and put on like these gemstones and things like that. But for me, it's a reminder, we talk about like life is better slowed down. So if I slow down, like in those moments and, I'm more intentional about, reaching out, letting people know that like I'm thinking of them. I think I'm going to do that more often. I jump around a lot. So
that's okay. I think I just want to circle back quickly to the success iceberg before we wrap up today's episode, and just really think about how, reflecting again on anybody's success or their journey, and really celebrating all the underlying things that anybody has done to get to where they are in this current moment. Because it's been said, and I feel that it's very true, is we are in this moment where we need to be. And all the work that we've done up until this point has got us here and should be celebrated, because there's a lot that goes into it that people don't see. So it was a great message that I'm so happy our children are getting in the school. And it was really great jumping off point that I really wanted to talk to you, Veronica, and to everybody here about, because like you said, a success iceberg isn't something that's really shared as much as the other side of the coin. And so I want to make sure that people take the time to celebrate themselves.
Yeah. And I'm laughing because like, I feel like we're getting to that 30-minute mark and I'm like, I have an aha moment.
Please share.
String all those little, what they feel like in the moment. They could feel like micro, right? But if you're moving in the right direction, you string them all together, they do all add up to a certain point to being a success iceberg. So like, you could start with such like little drops in a sense, and they might feel like that. And I think it's so easy to feel discouraged. So you could, be willing to all of a sudden take that step forward in whatever that is that you're talking about, in what the success iceberg, symbolizes or means for you. And sometimes, you could have an off day, but are you going to stay there, or are you going to continue, to move forward and build all those pieces together? Because I think, you and I realized the other night, I'm like, yeah, like for me personally, like, I feel like I had no idea that I was stringing all these pieces together. I did, but I don't think I realized like the difference and the impact and the change. Right. So for me, I have my own success iceberg, and there's different buckets. Okay. So we're going from glass balls and rubber balls to now like different symbolism of icebergs that I'm now picturing. But, it is symbolic that like, you string that all together and you're going to have a huge iceberg of success one day, if you keep going in that direction. So.
Absolutely. I think that is a great message to end this podcast on, that talking about life as an iceberg, whether you're reflecting on your own success or thinking about what has happened to yourself or other people. And again, just being kind to each and every person as much as possible. So thank you everybody for your support. Your likes, shares, follows. If you haven't done so, we would truly appreciate it, because it helps us out so very much. And those of you who have done it, thank you so much again. We are very grateful for this community that is ever growing and building, and we look forward to speaking with each and every one of you again on the next episode. Thanks, everybody.